Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another 2026 election prediction. This time we're taking a look at the governor's races in the 2026 elections, and definitely a lot has changed in my calculation because Democrats did a much better than expected in the 2025 governor election, so that's only good for them on this outlook. So first, we're going to set up the safe red states. These are states that are just won by the Republicans by over 10 points. They're just not going to be competitive at all. Then we're going to do the safe blue states. At least all the ones worth really talking about. Colorado's safe blue. Honestly, New Mexico's governor's race. Let's take a look if there's anyone decent running on the Republican side. I'm assuming there is not. Yeah, they don't even have anyone decent. So I think New Mexico's governor's race is on track to be a safe blue hold for Democrats because they have Deb Haaland running. She's a very strong Democratic candidate. On the Republican side, Florida, it's not going to be competitive. I really doubt it. It's just Florida is such a red state at this point. They keep gaining in party registration in the state as well. It's going to be safe Republican. Texas is the Greg Abbott. He's a popular governor right now. I don't see him even being in a competitive race. I think he wins this by over 10 points. Phil Scott, likely to run for re-election. I think he wins this race by a safe Republican margin. In Rhode Island, Democrats have an unpopular governor here who's likely to get primaried. So if he is primaried, which he's likely to do so, it's going to be a safe blue hold for Democrats because they're replacing him because of the corruption scandal around him. In Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, he is leading by a very significant margin against his Republican opponents. Yeah, he's leading by about 16 points, so I do think he's on track for a very sizable victory, similar to the victory he had in 2022. In New York with Kathy Hochul, her approval rating has heavily rebounded. She is very likely to be facing Elise Stefanik in the governor's race. Bruce Blakeman is also weighing a run for governor, but I doubt he has a chance in the Republican primary because we could just take a look at her lead. It's pretty significant. Siena College poll has a bit closer, but that's because they didn't really push the undecideds as much. But Stefanik is on track to win the Republican primary. And then in the general election, the Manhattan Institute poll is complete garbage. They've only looked at New York City voters, and they weighed that to reshape the electorate there. This is a worthless poll, Manhattan Institute. It's literally worthless. So disregard it entirely. But if we look at the Gray House and Siena College polls, I would say Kathy Hochul's on track to do better than she did in 2022. I think she's going to win by a safe blue margin of 11 percentage points in the state of New York. Okay, so I think we did all the safe blue and safe red states already. Now we could get to the likely blue states, or in likely red states. So we'll go over to Kansas. This is an open seat, and the Democrats don't really have a lot of top tier candidates in this race. They only have a bunch of state senators. And Sharice Davids said if she does get drawn out of the congressional map in Kansas, she would consider a statewide run for either governor or for Senate. So if she does run, Sharice Davids does run, I think she'd be the favorite to win the governor's race. And I think she'd be more likely to win the governor's race than the Senate race because that's less polarized. But right now, Kansas Republicans have given up on trying to gerrymander Kansas as of recently. They're probably going to try again in early 2026, and they're probably going to give up again. They just don't have a big enough of a majority to guarantee that they could redraw the maps. So far, we have no polling out of this race. But judging by on Kansas's partisan lean and the Democrats don't really have anyone good running, this is going to be a likely Republican flip. Going over to Oregon, Tina Kotek, she has the lowest approval ratings out of the Democratic governors, so I think she'd be in the most vulnerable position. Plus, she only won by around 3 or 4 points back in 2022, so I would put this as a likely blue race. Going up to New Hampshire, we have Kelly Oyette, who has a decent approval rating. I think she's still on track to win by a bit lower of a margin than she won in 2022. I think she wins by about 7 points, just because we're in a Democratic midterm. She's going to be facing losing a little bit of independence in the state, but I still think she wins by a decent margin of 7 percentage points. In Maine, it's an open race. We have a lot of gubernatorial candidates on the Democratic side running. We have the son of Angus King running in this race. We have Troy Jackson, who might be considering to run for Maine's 2nd congressional district as of right now. We haven't had really any polling out of this Democratic primary race, so really anyone could win this in the Democratic side, and I think they would all be pretty decent candidates. We have Jonathan Bush running, who I think would just lose. And we really have not had any polls out of this race, but I think the Democrats are on track to win here by about 8 points. In Maine's governor's race, Tim Walz is running for re-election. I think he's on track to win this race by about 7 points. Plus, there really isn't anyone amazing running on the Republican side. Going over to Alaska, we do have a strong Democratic candidate running in Alaska. He isn't Mary Patola, but he is Tom Begich, who is the uncle of the current GOP representative in Alaska, Nick Begich. But I do think Tom Begich would at least make this race decently close. So far, they only done polling with Mary Patola running for this race. But I think this is a lean Republican race right now. I think Begich would make this decently close. In Arizona and Nevada, we'll go to Arizona first with Katie Hobbs. This is a R+6 state from 2024, so this is going to be definitely one of the more competitive governor's races. So far, Andy Biggs has pretty much trailed in every single poll right now, and he's most likely going to be the Republican nominee. But Katie Hobbs doesn't have that dominating of a lead. She's only up by 2 points on average in these polls. So I still think this is going to be a competitive race in Arizona. I would put this about a similar margin that it was against Kari Lake, so a tilt blue margin. Nevada is up next, and the Republican governor is popular. He does have a high favorability rating, but the Democrats do have Aaron Ford, who is a decent candidate, and Steve Sisolak is also considering another run at Nevada governor. He previously lost to Joe Lombardo. In the general election polling, actually, you had a recent poll. It only shows Joe Lombardo leading by 3 points in this race. So I'm going to be putting this as a tilt Republican race. This is going to be decently close, in my opinion. So even though he has a high approval rating, Democrats are just kind of fired up to vote in the 2026 midterms. So this is another race to keep an eye on in Nevada. So let's head over to Wisconsin. It's an open race. Tony Evers is not running for re-election. On the Democratic side, it's pretty wide open. It's probably going to be between Sarah Rodriguez and Mandela Barnes at this point. I think Rodriguez is the narrow favorite, though, because she is the current lieutenant governor. In the polling, this poll's basically worthless. They have 81% undecideds. I don't even know why they bothered. Mandela Barnes is leading another poll, so it is really between him and Rodriguez in this race. The Republicans, they have Tom Tiffany. He's most likely going to be the Republican nominee, but I really just don't see them winning in a Democratic midterm year, especially with the Democrats winning the generic ballot by 4 percentage points. I think this is a lean blue hold for Democrats in the Wisconsin governor's race. So now we head over to Iowa, which is going to be decently competitive. Rob Sand is the only Democrat to have won statewide in the red wave in 2022 in Iowa. So he's very likely to be the Democratic nominee. On the Republican side, Randy Finstra is extremely likely to be the Republican nominee. He represents a northern Iowan congressional district. It's the most the rural one as well. Another poll, well, the only poll in this matchup actually shows Rob Sand leading here, but the number that's concerning for him is that 12% undecided could very well go to Randy Finstra in a state that Trump won by 13 points. There's probably more Republican voters in this undecided than we think. So I still think this is a lean Republican race, but I think Randy Finstra, he's only on track to win by about 2 percentage points in the state of Iowa. So it's still up in the air here. Rob Sand could still win that governor's race. Plus, Iowa's economy, their GDP growth has went down by 6% in 2025. So it's going to be decently competitive, and we need more polls out of this race because we only have one poll showing the Democrat up. I want to see more before I decide to either give this race to the Democrats or we could see how big of a lead the Republicans actually have here. A bit of a doubter in Iowa for Democratic chances. So now we head to Michigan, which is going to be a very competitive governor race because Mike Duggan is taking a lot of votes away from Democrats in Detroit. He's also polling in the double digits still, but his lead's starting to decline. He used to be in the 20s, now he's only in the teens, and it's probably going to go down to single digits because I think voters are going to realize they're splitting the vote and that John James could very well win if they keep splitting the vote. So strategically, Mike Duggan voters are going to go towards Benson as the cycle goes on. I really doubt John James wins this race still. But I will be putting it as tilt to blue out of abundance of caution because Mike Duggan is currently splitting the vote with a Democratic nominee. So until he drops out or until he declines in the polls by a lot, I'm not comfortable giving this a lean blue categorization. So I'm putting this as tilt blue for now. In the Ohio's governor's race, Vivek Ramaswamy is actually starting to lose a bit of his lead as we go on. It's getting smaller and smaller. He used to be up by like 10, 5 points even, but now his lead's going down to 3 points. Sometimes he's even trailing in a poll. Tim Ryan is heavily considering entering this race, and I think he'd be the best Democratic nominee that they could run here. He could actually beat Vivek Ramaswamy, but I still think Vivek is on track to win Ohio's governor's race by about 3 percentage points as of right now. And then we head down to Georgia. And so far, the Republican candidate is most likely going to be Burt Jones. He tried to overturn the 2020 election in Georgia, so he's a very controversial candidate in that regard. He's so far leading the Republican primary polls, but Raffensperger is not so far behind. Raffensperger could win the Republican primary, and he would probably be the best candidate for Republicans to run here. I think he would give them a real shot at holding this governor's race. On the Democratic side, Keisha Lance Bottoms is likely to be the Democratic nominee. Lucy McBath has declined to run for governor. She would have been the best Democratic nominee. But so far, according to the poll, Lance Bottoms is leading in the Democratic primary. We really don't have any general election polls out of this race yet. But just judging by how I don't think Burt Jones is a good candidate at all, and he is currently leading the Republican primary polls, I think the Democrats are narrowly favored to flip the Georgia's governor's race blue. They did well in Georgia in 2025. I think they're going to do well again in 2026. I think Keisha Lance Bottoms would get good black turnout in the state. I think she'd be able to win over those independent voters as well, because Burt Jones, I mean, him trying to overturn the 2020 election would look a bit sketchy to a lot of moderate voters in Georgia, which do exist. I mean, Trump did win independents in Georgia by about 12 points against Harris when Biden carried them by around, I think, 6 points back in 2020. He might have even won by a bigger margin than that. So I'm just going off the top of my head with that number. But again, independents are a real voting bloc in Georgia, and I don't think they're going to line up in front to vote for Burt Jones here. So this is how I currently see the 2026 gubernatorial elections going. Democrats get narrow wins in Georgia, Michigan, and Arizona, while Republicans have a narrow win in Nevada. So there's a lot of competitive races to keep an eye on in the 2026 gubernatorial elections. But I think it pretty much stays at the same total it was going into this. There's 24 Democrats and 26 Republicans. So the Republicans flip Kansas, Democrats flip Georgia. So that's currently how things are on pace to go for November 2025. We're a year out from the 2026 elections. So if you enjoyed this video and you're new to this channel, you should definitely consider subscribing. I do US political content like this all the time. So I will see y'all in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.